part 3 of the build. I broke it down into sections, and in the last one I managed to get all the leaf spring setups done and bolted up to the axles and the knuckles in there. So this one I'm going to be doing parts 12 to 17 in the manual, and that is diffs, diff shafts and stuff for the axle, and then putting the axle casings over the diffs I would have just made, and then we're going to fit all the little hangers to the axles and then hang them to the leaf spring setup that's already on there now. So it seems quite a lot, but there isn't actually that much. This is kind of one of those repetitive stages. I'll be building 2 diff gears. The axle housings are slightly different, as one's a double drive, so I will show you the difference in that, and then it's just a case of bolting them all up and hanging them. So now we're going to be making up 2 diffs. I've already gone ahead and just popped them into place, but I'll show you here. So you're going to want your little spider gears. I do have a video on YouTube how to lock diffs using these spider gears. I will show you in another video on the triaxle build I'm doing, as I will be locking some up on that, and I am keeping these unlocked, so it just seems easier to show you on another truck that I'm doing it, to save me locking it on this to take it apart to unlock it. But basically all you would do if you are locking, and it's totally reversible, is take one spider gear off there and just drop that in there at the side of those, and basically that is your diff now locked. Put it back together. It's the easiest, most cleanest way of diff locking. If you want limited slip, then find some real thick diff grease. Want some like million weight or something really thick and gloopy, and just pack it in there. So step 12 for the rear diffs. So here's all the parts. You have the gears which go either side of the inside of the diff. You have your spider gears which will sit on that little like Mercedes badge there, and a couple of like shims, if you will, big washers. And these are dead simple. Now you are going to need to lube these up. Now you can use Tamiya's grease that they provide. I have some diff grease that I use in my crawlers there, and it's a thick one, and I have a red tacky there, which I swear by that in a lot of stuff, and I'll be more prone to using this particular grease on this build. But there is nothing wrong with the ceramic grease provided when I've used it in the past, when I used to use it when I started out and stuff. I never had an issue. I've never blown any diffs, so this is just my preference, that's all. But I'm just saying there are options out there should you wish to opt for something other than that. So you have red tacky, and I can't believe if this, I think this is the million weight. It's not thin in any way. So for the washer bits, it'll just be putting a little bit of that on the bottom here. That's a thick grease as well. The red tacky stuff is awesome, and that's just gonna sit in there. And I'm gonna drop one of these onto the top. Now this one's greasing. Can never really have too little. I'm using my own grease here. So now to build up the spider gears, and they all just sit on. Make sure the cogs are to the inside, the teeth. Just drop that in there. There we go. There's little grooves cut out where your Mercedes badge, should we say, will go. And same for the other side. Just want to grease up your washer. You want to make sure all these parts are always just moving freely. These are what drive your truck at the end of the day. And that I'm going to close up onto there. And if you're not getting it to seat just quite flush, don't worry about that. It's nothing you've done wrong. Just put your diff shaft in there and just give them a little waggle until it all closes up. There we go. And now we're going to add 3 tiny little 2x5mm screws into the holes here. So also using a little bit of thread lock on these as well. Small little dip of that. And let's close up these diff housings. And repeat for the other 2 screws. So that is one diff. And all we're going to do is repeat that for this one. I haven't greased this one up yet, so I shall do that now. So a little bit of grease around the ring, both sides. Drop in the larger gear, add grease again. And taking your little Mercedes badge of bevels, which you have put to the inside with the teeth to the inside. Just drop that into there. You can see the gear working in the back. More grease. And close it up. See, that one closed straight away that time. That one didn't need a waggle. Part 13, the differential housings. I've just got these removed from the parts tree, all cleaned up, and I have everything here I need for this bit. Now, I replaced the bushings that come in the standard Tamiya kits, because these could have a tendency to like just collect crap and seize, whereas a ball bearing is more free rolling. Now you do get 4 in your kit, which whoop to do. I don't know why they just don't put bearings in the kit. It would be absolutely nothing whatsoever in additional cost really to Tamiya. All these are really is good for collecting them and weighing them in. You can find them on the internet. At the minute you'd probably just search like Tamiya R620 or any 6x4 Tamiya truck bearing kit, and it'll be a 32 piece bearing, and you'll get all the various sizes needed. But the majorities are these 1150 bearings or the 1150 sized bushings. Step 13 is the double drive output. Now it's virtually the same as that, apart from you just putting an extra like little shaft with a bevel on there to rotate the diff. You want to do is take your bearings or your bushings, whichever you are using, and just pop these into the little recesses within the diff housing there. There's one at the front and there is also one on the rear. Once we have the bearings in, next what we want to do is get your little gear bevel shafts, and they're going to go in from the inside. But first of all, we need to lube these up. Taking one of the larger E-clips. Now you do get some kind of a tool, looks like a wedge. I've always just been prone for using the pliers, but there is one of those in there and you can push against that to lock them in or not. So I prefer pliers, but you can get another there. So that's one locked in. Repeat that for this one. So they're in there, the diffs are made. Now what we want to do is taking your axle shafts. They look alike, but one is shorter with a long thin pointy bit, and that's going to sit within there inside the diff, and they are both the same, so it's just basically 1 and 2. So again, grease. These are all mechanical parts, so it's important that you get all these greased up. Just run a bit of that in there. So on your shafts you'll find like little grooves cut out on both, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to add one of these E-clips. These are when they become a real pain in the arse. One in there, and then again these bearings, just going to put 2 on there and an E-clip on the end to stop them sliding out. You just really didn't need to see me wrestling with that for 10 minutes. So just lube up the shaft. And you want to take the other shaft, and again, as I said, pop the E-clips into the designated grooves there, cut out. I'll be back in an hour.
Later that day,
I just want to drop kick this E-clip straight off the table. Put one right under its jaw. Fucking thing. You want to put your 2 E-clips onto this one. I've still another one to put on there, but it does need 2 bearings on here, as it did the other side. And then another E-clip just to clamp them in.
6.5 hours later.
More grease. Now you want to take your diff gear and using this one with the thin pin through the back, like so, and then take this one. It'll have a hollow part in the end which is going to slot over that pin. As long as your threads are to the outside, you've got it the right way around, like so. Now if that was locked and I used the gear, the spider gear, to lock those, that wouldn't be rotating counter direction to this one. It would actually be rotating the same way. So basically you want to repeat that for this one. The E-clip to the end by the threaded bar in that recess, and again the other 2 bearings, and then the remaining E-clip on the inside lip, not the one by the gear there. and grease them up. Pin's going to go through the back of it, and then that one back onto the front. If you look inside your diff housings, these will only go one way, and that'll rotate at the side of your gear there. So now what we want to do is, there are little recesses, 1, 2, 3, and a little groove there. That is where your bearings are going to be sitting. So now we want to put all the bearings in place. So we'll slide that one up to that point, and then it all just drops in there. There we go. And we now have a functioning diff. Add your grease. Work that in there. And that gear is going to sit over that one, and that's basically just going to do the same as the one in there. Close that up. So on the back or the inside of your housing, you'll have another 8 recesses for some nuts, and all you're going to do is take your nuts, pop that in the back with your 15mm screw and screw them up, and then you just want to basically repeat that for the remaining 7 on the rest of the axle. Once you've got that all clamped together with the nuts and bolts, the next bit are the joint cups. It's going to be a couple of those and a couple of little grub screws, and they'll sit over the ends of the shafts here, and then your little prop shafts will seat in those later. So it's simple. What you want to do is line your hole up with the flat point, because that's where your grub screws are going to bite against. If you bite it against the round half of the shaft, then it's just going to spin off. Thread lock, grub screw, yes, I have used quite a lot of thread lock on this bit, but they are prone to waggle out, like really prone to waggle out. And same on the other side, thread lock, and the hole up against the flat spot. Now for the second axle casing, the rear one is exactly the same. The only difference is we're only going to be putting one of those gear bevels in rather than one in either side. So we don't need that side at the moment. And that's basically the only difference, is you've just added an extra gear bevel for the extra drive output there. So the same way we did the first one, and you want to take 2 bearings or bushes. There are 150 bearings in the manual. On the inside, now the gear bevel, to Bit of lube on there. And take the little crappy E-clip. These ones aren't as bad, but when you're doing them on the shafts and stuff like that, they're an absolute fucking nightmare. You want to be a nightmare too, do you? Oh, for sake. God knows where that E-clip ended up. Woohoo! Right. So now we have the gear shaft in there. So now, the same way as we just did the other one, set that into there, like so. Line up where the bearings are going to seat. Grease it. And taking the other half of your axle housing, that one onto there, and same again, just pop your nuts in and screw from the back. So now we can add the final cup joint onto there, same again, making sure the hole is over the flat spot and some thread lock. So that is the two axles. Now for part 16, and we're going to bolt the axles to the leaf springs. So we need the 3x20mm in length screws, the axle hangers, and you also want to make sure the axles are facing the right way around. Now if this was the chassis led down, these little bits here, these are what are going to hit your bump stops and limit your travel. So if you wish and you want to eliminate them and have more travel, install them that way. Makes no difference, but your bump stops are now at the bottom and none at the top. Therefore, they're unrestricting what the bump stops are going to do. The bump stops there, they're virtually touching the bump stops once there's weight on there and it's riding solid. So that's a preference for you to maybe think about. So for this we are going to need the chassis, and obviously the single output is the rear and the double output is the centre. And these hangers, they want to go, and you see that there's like an overhanging point with an hole in it on that side. They want to go to the outsides, like the same direction as the rubber on the bump stops, and they're going to hang your shocks from either side. So they don't want to be in like that, they do want to be facing out. So before you go any further, you do just want to make sure, if I rotate this rod that way, my diff turns that way. So when I rotate this rod that way, I want that diff cup to turn that way. So there we are, going the same direction. So these to the outside, like I said, taking a 20mm screw, let's give it a little dip of thread lock. I'm going to go through, down through the hole on top of the axle there, out the other side, Screw that onto there. Add the other one. And repeat that for the remaining 3. As I said, keeping that to the outside. Just follow the bump stops with the rubber. Can't go wrong. Now once you've got them in, your chassis and axles should be looking somewhere along the lines of that. There you can just see where the bump stops are limiting the travel on them plastic bits. So now on to the final part for this one, and we're going to be adding these F parts, which are these like linking rod type things. However, I'm going to be replacing Liana's for these alloy ones, which I've just recently taken off my grand hauler because I've put it on airbags. So she may as well have the little goodies there. They are Gpm Radius Arms. So I already have the step screws in these radius arms, but same as we've done with other parts on the front axle where it's the step screws and the locking nut at behind, we're just going to be pretty much doing the same thing. So with the chassis upside down, your radius arm wants to like bend out that way, like so. Now there is a lip on the outside, and that's going to bolt up to the holes on your suspension bracket there. You're going to put one there like so, and another one that way like so. But for this, as I said, I'm going to be using these metal ones. So I'm going to bolt these up where they need to be. They're exactly the same as the plastic ones, just metal. There we go. Right, so now, just before we bolt these radius arms up to the mounts we've just put on the axles there, what you want to do is add your little 30mm prop shaft and just put that in the diff cups. Like so. Otherwise you'd have to take it all apart again to get it in there. So then basically all we're doing is, like I said, into the hangers, one there, one there. Same on this side. And put all the set screws in there to lock them in place. Then add your little locking nuts. So now we have a rear suspension and drive. I think Lionel's going to be super impressed with this. So now for the final piece of this pie. In the last video I have just realised I mentioned about painting, and I do sometimes paint my chassis kind of pre-constructed and not always in pieces. I did leave the shocks on when I said this is a good point to paint your truck. I didn't realise I had my shocks on. Take the shocks off if you're painting. Do not paint the shocks. I mean, by all means, you can dismantle them, paint your shock bodies and stuff like that, but you don't want to be painting the shock shafts. I mean, I know the shocks don't work very efficiently as it is, but they really won't work if you get paint on those. So just a quick heads up there. My bad, guys. So yeah, this one is we've added the shocks to these now. I think that's made me realise, but these shocks, I'm going to be getting these in. These are the rear ones, and they are unsprung, and they're going in the same way as we did the ones up the front here. A little step screw in the bottom into where it goes on your little hanger, and then up here we have these, and they act as like a spacer also. You can see it's lipped out a bit more there, so that helps again, just keeping the shocks sit more level rather than them being forced inwards or outwards. Just keeps them straight so the shocks and the shafts can just move as efficiently as possible. So we want to do for this again, a shock collar 15mm screw, put that all together like so, and then you want your little F part there, and they're just going to screw into these holes. They like kind of on an angle. Now that hole's basically just a blank to take that little pip on there, just to help it seat basically. So if I just start that into there, and then a step screw in here, with a locking nut on the back of there. And now we're just going to repeat this on that rear one, and them holes, and just same on the other side. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Well, I won't really know any difference, but at least I know it's alright. Seems a bit stiff now, but like I say, got the bump stops and the lips do catch, limiting it. However, if you want a little bit more flex and more travel, just remove the shocks, because like I say, they are just useless. They're more just like there for show than anything. But they don't perform, they don't do anything, they don't spring out, they just hang there restricting your travel basically. So that's your own personal choice if you wish to have them on or not. But yeah, it's an option if you want to gain more travel in the suspension, then do that. So in the next one, which will more than likely be tomorrow, it's a nice weight to it now, we'll make a start on the gearbox and we'll get that built and installed in there. But in the meantime, I'm going to go and chill out while my wife watches some TV and stuff, and I'm going to probably start trimming all the cab parts off the parts tree and getting the cab all prepped ready for a guide coat and then some prime, and then I can get the base coat laid down on that and some colour. So if I wasn't filming this and explaining as I go and editing in between and stuff. This chassis should only really take about an hour and a half to build tops. There isn't really much to it, but I know you all appreciate it. Anyway, I do thank you all for watching, and I hope you're all learning something if you're new to this, and I shall see you all in the next one tomorrow. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the notification bell to stay notified. If the videos aren't for you, ignore them. So enjoy your evening, guys, because it's now beer o'clock for me. Quick chill out for an hour, like I say, get the cab done, and then I'm off to bed, and we'll get the gearbox done tomorrow. Ciao for now, guys.